Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. This is EIP meeting number 21. The first agenda item is single source of truth for EIP. What's that agenda item referring to?
That is coming from the previous discussion. I do not see Brent here on the call, but that was something related to making one source of information. Like at this time, we have like multiple resources for getting information on EIP. One is eips.ethereum.org. Another one is ethereum.org/EIP. And then we have README. Then we have EIP1. So there was some discussion on it. And yeah, Micah, if you would like to add something on it, like.
I don't have anything specific other than what you just said, that we have 4 things that all describe the EIP process, and they all describe it a little bit differently, and they all describe it a little bit wrong because they're not in sync, and so each one is out of date in its own way. It would be nice if we didn't have that problem.
Okay, that's yeah. I think that EIP1 serves a different purpose than the README, the wiki, and the website, though.
Yes, it should, but it's, for reasons of history, it currently contains a bunch of overlap with them, just in terms of what content it does contain. And so the idea was that we would clearly delineate what should be in the README versus what should be in EIP1. And then once we have that line drawn, we can then delete all the stuff from the README that should be in EIP1 and vice versa. And then those two are at least now in sync. But then we still have the other problem of we have 2 other sources that are basically just description of the EIP process, which again are like draw lines, figure out what should be where, and then enforce that. Brent was going to work on this, but he's not here, so I don't know if he made progress.
Yeah, we can probably skip that one if Brent's not here to give progress. Otherwise, we might be talking about something he's already worked on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the second agenda item are Edson's comments. They are some of them are related. Edson, do you want to just go over them and we can talk about each one? We've talked about a lot of these before, but if people have new commentary or updates on some of these, I think that would be good. And I wasn't here for the entire last one, so if there was stuff that happened last time, I'm probably a little out of the loop. I should have read the notes, my bad.
Sure, I can go ahead. So the first one is, how can we onboard more EIP editors?
I think paying them would help, and I am talking to or kind of help thinking about how to do that. I'm not talking to anyone specifically who can pay us yet, but and even then, I think it would be more prioritizing people who aren't getting paid for anything right now except for EIP, or they're doing mostly EIP editing, and that's like their primary thing, or something they spend a significant amount of hours on, getting paid hourly or something like that, I think would be nice. So like I wouldn't want to get paid for that, but maybe Greg or Micah or other active people would.
I know Greg has said that he would prefer to not be paid. And so I don't know if we should ask him what his arguments are for that, and maybe see what other standards organizations do in terms of paying people involved in it, because I'm not sure how the IETF handles those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to ask him about that. Micah, did you have an opinion on that? Is that something like, if there was an opportunity to get paid for this, would you accept that maybe?
Yes, if someone gives me money for something I'm doing anyways, then I will accept said money.
Great. I would be in the same boat as you, except since the EF is kind of like, I don't think I push hours for this, but I also don't do it enough to really push hours for it beyond the few I do every few weeks. So yeah, I don't really need any money from it. So that's one thing. I think it's going to be kind of tough during the holidays because people are kind of all slowing down. I think that's just something that's just going to happen over the next couple of EIPIP meetings. And maybe we should have like a 2021 push to recruit editors once we find funding source, and look for a funding source. I think Moloch DAO would be a good place for that. Right now, like no one's submitting stuff to Moloch DAO, and everything that's getting submitted is getting passed. Like the very few things that are getting submitted. Like I think since June, there's only been like 2 proposals and they both passed.
Do you know what do you have like a short description of what their mission statement is or what their goal is?
Nope.
Okay.
It's a little bit in, it's
We
like
just know they have money and they're giving it away.
kinda, yeah. I mean, like
Okay.
originally it was really focused on, or it was focused on a lot of like non-core protocol, like privacy stuff like Tornado Cash, and but then it would like range to other things too. So it kind of, as time went on, it didn't really, no one really picked up the torch to adjust it for what it needed to be today, is what I'd say. But right now, there's someone named Yalda who is starting to do that. So there is hope that maybe it could start speeding up again and kind of becoming a new force. But they have like $1 million in their fund. So I don't think it'd be crazy to try to use Moloch DAO for that. And we could do that as early as, early December. So that might be something to consider.
So one thing I was wondering, like while we are figuring out like about this budget thing and all, but the one burning problem we have is a lot of issues and less editors. I was wondering if we can have somebody who is already looking into it. Like, I mean, in my mind, like client was there and it was earlier proposed as well. He has been actively looking into that. So is there a way, or if he agrees at all, then is there a way that we can come up with this onboarding and at least serve for the time being?
Yeah, if someone like Light Client's interested in even in taking any amount of responsibility in this, I'd be all for giving the right permissions for the repo, for people that we trust, even doing small tasks and maybe not wanting, if they don't, if regardless of if they want to be called an EIP editor or not, we can kind of work that part out. But my viewpoint is if anyone wants to help, there shouldn't be a hurdle in doing that for bureaucratic reasons, as long as we trust them.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help out. I don't know if you think it would be valuable for me to like go through this onboarding process. Like I'm pretty familiar with how things are going as it is because I've been going to all these calls for the last 6 to 8 months and I've been involved in the process. But maybe if we're going to look at even hiring more editors in the future and in the very near future, maybe it'll be beneficial for us to do like a dry run with me through this like onboarding process so we can get some feedback to how that all works. Because I don't know if we've actually had someone go through it yet since we've like been talking and developing it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm okay with that. What do you think, everyone else?
So we have another editor on call.
Oh, just Micah, I think.
I'm fine with it.
Cool. There's a chat with editors where I will bring that up today. Let me just make a note of that. And that would be adding you as an editor, and practicing onboarding.
Cool.
That'd be a good way to do it. Thanks so much for offering Light Client. That's definitely really awesome of you to do.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
And I mean, I guess I can't confirm it till I talk to the other editors, but I doubt there will be anyone who says no. Okay, Brent just showed up. So if we want, we can go back to his agenda item real quick, just in case there's an update on that.
Yeah, which one was that? Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. It's the one that says single source of truth for EIP. So that would be having something that accurately describes each, or basically having each EIP1, the README, the wiki, and eips.ethereum.org having their purpose well defined and the text with them well defined and different from the others.
Yeah, Mike appointed me to one of the guys that's working on that. And so I'm coordinating with him and we've opened a conversation, but there's still more work to do on that. It's work in progress.
Okay, great. Thanks for the update.
Mhm.
Edson, we can go back to what you're saying, but to summarize the first point, basically funding is a good idea, and we have Moloch DAO as a potential option, and Light Client is now probably an editor.
Okay, great. Should we move on to the next question, or should we?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
How can we onboard and assign more EIP champions?
I don't think it's our responsibility to really push that. I think if you want to be an EIP champion, well, the one thing is that it might be the responsibility of people who are helping to refactor the EIP process is clearly defining what an EIP champion is so that people understand the roles and responsibilities, and then having people champion when they want to champion. I don't think we should be saying, hey, can you champion this? That's a little bit out of scope. I think we should just let it be.
I feel like one way that we could help improve that process is, this kind of goes back to what I was thinking about this summer, was some way of having like informal working groups, and maybe it doesn't even need to be that overbearing. It could just be some people who have a lot of experience in specific EIP areas. Like I think like Alex Bergesazzi is like a good person from like the core side in a lot of ways. Same with Peter Sloggy and Martin. And these are sorts of people that could see like a core EIP come through. And if it's not something that they have the ability to push for themselves, they could say, this is something that is probably going to become finalized. It just needs to have that champion to go through. And I think this happened very organically, about a week ago, whenever Alex, and it might have been on the core devs call, it might have been in the breakout room, but basically there is an EIP that is supposed to limit the size of the account nonce. And this is something that's like mostly spec'd out already by Alex, and it just needs someone to take it to all core devs and try and like iron out any potential issues. And just because it came up, I offered to like go ahead and chaperone it through the rest of the way. And so that happened, in a very organic fashion. But I think that if we just talked to some of these people who are already like in these roles of overseeing a lot of things that is happening in that aspect of the Ethereum network, we might be able to just have them begin to think in terms of how to help delegate that work to other people.
Okay. I'm gonna have to think about that more before forming a full opinion.
Something that may help is if we can somehow make it more socially acceptable for people to create essentially forks of EIPs. So right now we have many EIPs that are all but done, as just described, but just have been dropped. And part of the problem is that only the author can edit it. And so I think if we just kind of make people aware that, hey, it's okay to just copy the EIP, put your own author on it, change the EIP ID, you can now champion that. Like, you don't need to, if the original author isn't moving it forward and you want to, you can take it over, and that's okay. And I think right now there's like this feeling that people are like, oh, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, I don't want to take over their thing, and clearly this person doesn't care anymore because they haven't been working on it for a long time. So some way we can just make that make it known that's accepted. Like, that's okay. It's okay to fork a thing. Just like with open source repos, it's become acceptable to fork someone else's work. And we just need to do the same thing somehow with EIPs, I think.
That sounds good to me. That could just be a new expectation kind of set by editors from an editor's perspective.
Yeah, I try to encourage people to do that when I see it pop up. Maybe it's something that cat herders could also push for with their various news sources. I don't know if it could be talked about on their Twitter or just in those videos you guys make or something. Just something to get the word out there that, hey, if you see an EIP you like and it's stagnant, just fork it.
Yeah, sure. That is a good suggestion. We can definitely mention that in our newsletter and the EIPIP and EIP series that we talk to different authors.
One other possibility, I'm not sure if this is the right idea, but forking is always problematic because then you lose the single source of truth, you lose history. And it seems like another possibility would just, if someone's not active on an EIP, if someone proposes a change and then they're silent implies consent. So, and then if they come in later and say we missed something, they can pull us back. But anyway, that's my feeling. Yeah, I don't like forking.
Okay. That sounds good. Is there any other comments on this question?
It does seem like it is important messaging problem rather than concrete actions. Something that just needs to be continually said until it kind of like permeates throughout the community.
I'm curious what other people think about the suggestion of no comment means acceptance instead of denial. Currently, we are operating with no word from the editor means denied, but there's no word from the editor is more common than word from the editor.
I feel like it's, or to me, the outcome that we're kind of hoping for, I guess not really hoping for, but the outcome that makes it sane to work in Ethereum is that unless we have concrete agreement among people, we won't move things forward. And so it's different in that terms, in the terms of editors pushing things through and finalizing standards. If we don't have an editor responding, then that does not mean that we can move that forward. But in terms of the EIP, I feel like 99% of the time, if the person doesn't care enough to respond to someone who is updating their EIP, then it's unlikely that they're going to have a problem down the line whenever that EIP is actually pushed over the finish line by this new champion. And to me, I don't know, that's acceptable because even, if that person comes along later down the line, the editors can choose to figure out how to handle the situation appropriately.
Exactly.
I think that's less than 1% of the time, and the other 99% of the time, we get to have people come in and start championing EIPs. I guess like one of the problems is that maybe they could leave this like path of destruction behind them, where they change EIPs and then they also don't take it to the finish line, and so now you have this original author, this EIP that's like not really what they said, but it kind of still has their name on it, and it's in a worse place than it was, and so that is a bit of a concern.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion right now on that. Yeah, on Micah's question specifically, I don't have an opinion right now.
I guess I'm just like, in terms of forking, the thing I don't necessarily like about just copying the EIP and starting anew is I don't like the idea of having potentially 5 to 10 versions of an EIP just continuing to be forked along and along. And maybe that's just like something silly I have in my head, because realistically, like, we are unbounded in the number of EIPs that we can assign, and there's nothing stopping us from having all these EIP numbers.
I don't think that that's also something that's going to happen often. I think the most times an EIP would fork would be 3, and that's rare. Because the first time it would be like, oh, this EIP didn't get much traction, let me try. And then it would have to the author would have to abandon, the new author would have to then abandon it, and that would be the second abandonment. And then it would happen a third time. And by the third time, there would be a trail of people not wanting it. So there could even be like some hinting from the editors of, hey, this has a history, or you should look at the history.
That's true. It's just, it's not as easy to like look through the history if they're just copies of EIPs, because you kind of have to go to the EIP site, copy the title, search for that title. If the title has changed, it's like even harder to see if that EIP has actually been copied. Whereas
well, in that case, it doesn't matter then, because if there's enough changes, then it really is a new EIP.
That's true.
Also, we do have the ability. We do have the thing that we just introduced where we actually are marking EIPs as abandoned eventually, and so that I think will hopefully help reduce the frequency with which we see like many copies that are in some sort of state that is under like anything other than abandon, and you can just ignore the abandoned ones or the withdrawn, whatever we decided to call it.
So if an EIP is abandoned, should we assume that it should be, if someone wants to work on that, should we say that if the champion is no longer around to really respond to anything, should they copy that EIP and create a new one? Or because it's abandoned, is it okay for us to say, okay, because it was abandoned, the champion didn't care to get into a place that mattered, and so we're going to allow them to like become champions of it?
I believe when in this previous discussion, we agreed that you'd have to create a new one, so that way we don't have to deal with the problem of politics and people like saying, "Oh, I abandoned it on purpose because I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't want my name attached to it. I don't want my history." And I think there's a fear of like this can get complicated. Whereas if we just say, "Hey, if you see an abandoned EIP that you like, fork it," like that's much simpler.
Okay.
Simpler politically, I mean, probably slightly harder in terms of mechanics, but I think simpler in terms of politics.
That seems fair.
Also,
I
I
guess-
believe we indicated
Oh,
that
sorry, go ahead.
abandoned EIPs can be unabandoned by their authors, and so that's another layer of complication if we allowed someone to take it over. Like it gets abandoned, and the person comes back, and they're like, "Oh, I want to resume this after all," and then but someone else started taking it over, and so then we tell them to fork. Like it gets weird.
If you take a petition model, that may not make sense here, but in Canonizer, people can explicitly sign a camp and join a camp, but they can also leave a camp anytime they want. And so to me, it's not a governance problem, political problem, it's just a communication problem. How can that person either leave his name on or remove his name off the camp? So anyway.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is though with Canonizer though, like it's a little easier than an EIP where you're having to trace someone down manually. That's not like they have an account you can just message like on Canonizer.
Good point.
I think the other thing like client that I would say is if we're doing it kind of the way it already is where we just fork the EIP and it turns out there starts to be a problem, you can propose a change or anyone can propose a change to the process. But I don't think there's a better process I don't think there's a better balance of process right now that we wouldn't be able to predict things already.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are people okay if we say that the official messaging is that people should fork an EIP if they want to go ahead and work on it, and the informal messaging is that people should make an effort if they want to work on EIP to try and reach out to the original author and try to take over that EIP if possible?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Seems like just a courteous way of like going about it, and I
Yeah.
feel like that helps avoid this potential scenario where someone is heads down working offline, and they start working on this EIP, and then someone else comes along, and these are like 1 in 1,000, but it just seems like that would even resolve more potential problems.
I think that also aligns with open source software kind of etiquette, where generally people first try to go and propose a change or a PR or file an issue with some project, and then if they don't get traction or whatever, they'll say, "Okay, I'm just going to fork this and do my own thing."
Yep, that makes sense.
Sounds good
That
to me.
works.
Okay. Next up, how can we reduce the backlog? Oh, you mean the EIP backlog, right, Edson?
I think if
What
we
was
just
that?
cloned Micah a couple more times.
Yeah, actually, that's a real answer. That's good.
I want a copy of Micah.
Each clone is a little bit dumber than the first. You should have seen the first one. It was awesome.
That's really funny. Okay, so I think having more editors will reduce backlog, and that's really the only real solution.
I think between more editors and then the bot that we've added recently that basically goes through old issues of PRs and just says that this is stale and it's going to be closed, I think that that's like brought a lot of people out of the woodworks, or not out of the woodworks, in which case those PRs were just closed.
Yes, I think I agree. Anybody else have comments?
we are getting down. Like we were at, I don't know, 10 pages of backlog, and I think we're down to 2 or 3, and that's mostly due to the bot. Like the bot has just been slowly working through. Something to keep in mind, the bot actually does have a limit on how many it will flag at a time. And so it's been iterating through, and as things get closed, it then opens up a slot where the bot can then flag something else. And so it's still making progress. I don't know if it's reached the end or not in its first pass. And then of course, as things get just abandoned naturally, they're also going away. On top of that, since whenever I started, like in July or something, mid-July, I believe I have been responding to everybody. I think I have responded to everybody. It's like I think that there is no longer a problem since July of people submitting EIPs and getting no editor to look at them, which was a very big problem previously. And so my hope is that between the bot and me actually responding to people, we will get to a point where eventually all that's left in the pull request list are EIPs that are actively being worked on. I think that combined with the automatic move to abandonment, which will kick in, in a month or something like that, I'm hoping that we have done enough that as long as you keep up with all that, we will get down to something that is manageable for one full-time individual. Not guaranteed, but that's my hope.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that, Micah. I mean, I personally have observed this, like a lot of pull requests are now closed, and for whatever time, like whenever we have requested, and personally, I have received all the messages from you getting response. So thank you so much for this hard work.
Great. Any other comments on this? My phone, sorry.
Does anybody disagree that our current trajectory looks like we're going to get to a good place eventually? Like, is the worry that we're not going fast enough, or just that our trajectory is actually wrong? Like we are not heading towards healthy state?
I read it more as a check-in, but Edson, did you have a specific meaning behind the question?
It was just a question asked a long time ago. Just checking.
Okay. Next up, how can we reduce the turnaround time? That actually is like, I think that kind of goes with the previous one, and that is just more editors. Micah's doing good. Light clients getting added. Yeah. Any other comments on that, or did you have something else, a direction to take that other than its literal direction, Edson?
I think we could move on.
How can we organize working groups for different EIP categories? Ooh, what's the idea behind this one?
I think it was having I think something similar to editors who focus on a specific type of EIP. So someone that focuses on ERCs and stuff like that. Or I think it was a group that creates those kind of EAPs. I'm not quite sure.
Cool. Any comments on that? I don't know if we're at the point where we want working groups for different EIP categories. Personally, I think we have enough else going on.
I would like just separate repos for the different categories personally, so I can ignore one of them. I really don't like ERCs.
We've talked about separating them before, and it always has come up how messy that would be. And if we want to split it, because then there could be cause to split it again in the future, and it would be a precedent set that we could between, like, and then we could split it again for smart contract versus like API standards versus other types of ERCs. And there's pros and cons. And if anyone wants to bring that up again for the future, feel free. I just always like shiver at the thought of going through that.
You have to create a new naming or numbering standard. So right now we have it with issues and PRs.
Just add 4,000 to every issue number. That's the new numbering standard, or whatever your fork block is.
Nice.
That
Okay.
won't bite us later.
We've run out of space. Let's see. Any other comments on that one?
I may have a question, so not directly related to this particular question, but somehow, like, we are talking about having different repositories and different categories of that. So my understanding is we agreed that no more meta, no more informational EIPs would be there. But at least for one EIP, which I believe would be going forward about that Serenity Phase 0, would there be any other place where it will go, or if we are just going to get it in the final form? Because yesterday we had some talk with the author, and we are moving, I mean, the author is proposing to move towards like changing the status of the EIP to the last call and then eventually to the final status. So is there anything else to be done, or that is just the fine?
Are they already in review?
So for review section, yeah, that was the case, and we discussed that ideally it should have been in review 2 weeks back when they actually added the spec, the final spec for this upgrade. But since we did not do, they did not do it. Is it okay to just skip the stage for now and put it in the last call, because there are only 2 weeks left till they go for final deploying? So that was a question.
I mean, I just didn't realize they were already in review. That's all. Like, they should. I would say, A, move to review right now if they haven't yet, and then B, are they okay to move into last call soon? It's up to the author, I would say. I don't think we put any hard requirements on length of time you have to be in review.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So the author currently is proposing that if it is fine to skip the in review for now and right away go to the last call, still they would be getting 14 days, which would be like, the time by the time they would be reaching for that Genesis. So is it okay to go ahead with?
I'd say so.
From a process standpoint, I think so as well. I'm still not a fan of that EIP, but I've lost that fight, so I will back down.
Okay, cool. I'll just communicate that.
Okay. I think that's the end of Edson's questions. Edson, did you have anything else?
No. I think we should track the funding part of it and just more progress on getting more editors. I guess you said next year, since we only have like a month and a half left.
We have a month and a half left. There's definitely things we can do in that month and a half, but nothing, I doubt we can do anything substantial based on just the previous years when things have slowed down during the holidays, kind of a thing. Okay. Thanks, Edson, for the questions. Those were good. Next up is the item 3, the network upgrade process medium post. Pooja, do you have an update on that?
We already have shared this network upgrade process with the all codem meeting, and this would be live today. I have shared the link of the medium. It will be live and shared with the rest of the people. We haven't received any comment or any suggestions to make corrective suggestions to edit on the process part that we earlier decided on or maybe discussed on. So yes, that would be going live today.
Great. Anybody have a comment on that? Okay, we also have item 4, EIP status medium post. I think that's probably Pooja again. Do we have, is that something that's in progress? I vaguely remember something like that.
I think that is a medium post in progress with Edson, and Edson, if you have anything to add, or maybe next week, I don't know.
I have a draft. It should be ready for review and posting this week.
Cool. Onboarding EIP editors, expectation guidelines. We already went over that as one of Edson's questions, I think, unless there's something else that this item refers to.
No, I think that is pretty much covered there. But yeah, if anybody has any other comment.
All right, review action items from the previous meeting. The decision 2021 is actually, I don't know if there's any action items. There's decision items. I think that's the same thing. No, that's just decisions we made. So we don't have any action items from the last meeting, I don't believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Is there anyone with any outstanding things that didn't make it on the agenda or anything that they want to talk about?
I had this one thing in mind, like now that the network upgrade repository is separated from this entire process, I had a question like, should we, I mean, is it the right thing to do to start considering issues and pull requests that comes over there? I mean, in this EIPIP group also, that EIPIP is we are talking about in EIP editing. So can we bring up issues which are there and heavily discussed, bring into the agenda from next meeting onwards? Is it okay?
It sounds good to me. So wait, can you rephrase that last part real quick though? Like,
So my question here was like, whatever issues that keep on getting discussion on other forums and is related to definitely related to EIP or process or the network upgrade, is it fair to be a part of agenda?
I think as far as the agenda is staying this small, yes. If it starts to get unruly, we might have to cut some stuff that might be lower priority or less relevant.
Who is, so for the EIP repository, we have EIP editors, which are the people who do the like editing, like making sure things flow through the process. Is there a similar group for the network upgrade process, or is it just James?
Pretty much James, Pooja, and Tim Byko.
Okay.
James is lead, but Tim and Pooja help.
Yeah, we are just helping with
Gotcha.
keeping it up to date. And there was this like a pull request that we received. So I was wondering if that is something that we can consider here and talk about. I don't know. I'm not sure because I don't see James here in the meeting. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If there's nothing else, I think we can stop the meeting, and the next meeting is going to be on December 2nd at 1500 UTC.
I think I may have one other thing. I'm just scrolling through chat history. I thought I asked
Sure.
something, didn't get a response. Oh yeah, the merge bot. The merge bot seems to randomly turn itself on and off. I do not know where it lives or how to make it turn on or how to kick it. It'd be great if those instructions were somewhere that I could find and more people have access to it who are reachable. Because when it goes down, it usually just stays down for days, and it kind of breaks the process and requires a bunch more work from me, for example.
Who runs that? Do we know?
I think it's
I
Nick.
do not.
I think Nick Johnson.
So Nick wrote it. Nick does not. So let me phrase that. Nick wrote it. Nick may also be technically the operator, but I haven't actually seen Nick for.
I
12
heard
months.
at some point in the last year that Nick has it running on like Heroku or some like, you know, platform as a service. That could be
Right.
wrong, but that's what I thought that I had heard a while ago.
That would not surprise me. So then the follow-up question is can we bring that under the wing of someone who is more active and available?
That's a good idea. Do you have a talking relationship with Nick, Micah? Like, do you know how to reach out to him on Twitter? Or otherwise I can talk to him.
I'm currently boycotting Twitter. I do see him in the ENS Discord. Like I know I just said that I haven't seen him for 12 months, but I have actually seen his name pop up in the ENS Discord like 3 times in the last 2 months. So maybe I can reach him there.
Oh, I didn't know you had Discord. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, there's a person called Nick Johnson who's answering ENS questions sporadically in the ENS room. So I think that's him.
Is it the real Nick Johnson, who we will never know?
You'll never know.
Suddenly someone gives you like a broken Heroku box that doesn't have real code in it. And they're just like, here you go.
Here you go.
Okay. Anyways, cool. Anything else from anybody?
Does anyone want to volunteer to take that over?
Oh.
I would rather not be the person in charge.
I feel like I don't have the skill set required. Maybe I do. Because I don't know the code or anything.
I don't either. Like, in a perfect world, we would have someone who actually can make changes to it as well, not just who knows how to turn it on and off. But in a less perfect world, but better than the current world, we at least have someone and knows how to turn it on and off.
I will talk to Nick and see what's required to jumpstart it, and then when it freaks out, I'll learn how to just restart it. I think that would be a good medium right now.
Yes, that would be, I think, a notable improvement. Just literally anyone who is reasonably available and knows how to kick the box.
And this is the merge bot, right?
Yeah, the merge bot. Light Client has already done wonders with the CI piece.
Okay. Sounds good. I can do that. Anyone have anything else?
I was gonna say maybe longer term we can look at like Moloch to see if maybe, I don't know if it's an editor that's also like, really inclined to work on the merge bot. I would like to work on the merge bot, but between full-time work, helping with the repository, doing the CI bot, another thing is a lot of extra stuff to have on top of the other responsibilities I have. Maybe as things cool down, I could help more on that, but I don't know if it would make sense to have like another editor who's kind of like pet in the EIPS organization is the merge bot itself.
Yeah. Okay.
But we can think about it longer term. Like if you talk to Nick and we can figure out a way to just have it under one of our own control, and I'm happy to help like be a part of that and be available to like help kick it to get it started going again. I just don't have the bandwidth to like really contribute to it to make it do the things that we want to do right now.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
Yeah.
It's understandable.
Yeah, on top of just being able to kick it, we have discussed a number of improvements that I think everybody has agreed would be good.
There are a lot of
like,
great things we could do to it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If we had money to hire a full-time engineer, there's a bunch of cool things we would like to do with that engineer, but we do not currently have an engineer. Or rather, we have a bunch of engineers, none of which.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You went mute for a second, Micah. Was that the end of your talking? It kind of sounded like it cut out.
I believe so. And I don't know where it cut out, but I think so.
Okay, cool. Okay. Awesome. Anything else from anybody? All right. Thanks, everybody. Talk to y'all in 2 weeks.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.